Good morning. Today I am reviewing another short story from Tanith Lee's collection Red as Blood, or Tales of the Sisters Grimmer, with this beautiful cover art by Michael Whelan. So the story I'm doing today is the fifth in the collection. It's called The Princess and Her Future. It is in the index subtitled as being from Asia, 18th century. Actually, let me check that. Yes, Asia, the 18th century. It says so right here. And we start off in the deep darkness of the green water of the cistern, where no reflection and no sunlight ever came. Hieronymus waits, not with patience, for patience is not a virtue to such as he, not with resignation nor with despair. Hieronymus knows, as he has always known from the actual instant of his binding, that at last his waiting must come to an end. Who Hieronymus is, we don't really get more than that. Tanith Lee then zooms back to show us the setting. This cistern is sitting inside a ruined temple. The temple has largely fallen to pink dust, as she calls it, and it's in a jungle. And she briefly and gorgeously describes this lush Asian jungle. To those of you that have read Phantasm by Tanith Lee, you will very swiftly recognize the lushness of description that she's coming from, both in Phantasm and in The Princess and Her Future. So as you leave the ruined temple and you go through the jungle, there's this little path that leads eventually to the gate. On the other side of the gate, there is a bustling, living, vibrant palace in which the princess in question lives with her father. She discovered this gate leading through the jungle to this ruined temple when she was a little girl, and her nurse always warned her that a Rakasha lived there. But now the princess is grown up, she's been betrothed, she'll be married in a few months. Her nurse has died, and she wanders up to the temple, as she will with her attendant women. That's your setting. It feels very India. It feels very Ramayana. So when I was a kid, my mother brought me a whole heap of fairy tales, and the Ramayana were some of them. I loved the Ramayana. They were so lush. I feel like possibly Tanith Lee at some stage read similar stories. Anyhow, the princess's story kicks off when she goes to the marketplace, and someone with eyes who reveal he's not quite human gives her a gift, and that throws us into the whole story, which you're going to have to read for yourself because I'm not going to tell you. But this is Tanith Lee at her most horror. Throughout this, we've got the lushness of the setting, and you've got this slow creeping knowledge that this is not going to end well. This is not going to end well for the princess at all. It has so many elements of symbology and mysticism that are fantastic. If you go online, by the way, online will tell you that this is a retelling of The Frog Prince. I have severe doubts. I mean, Tanith Lee liked taking a fairy story and turning it on its head, and if The Frog Prince wasn't a prince disguised as a frog, a prince who was disguised as a frog who had to be kissed in order to release him from the enchantment, if it was entirely the other way around, you could maybe argue this was the Frog Prince. I don't know. Red as Blood doesn't source retellings just from the Brothers Grimm, despite the subtitle. It takes a few from Charles Perrault, which I recognise from my shelf, and there's a few other myth tellers such as Alexander Afansiev, who I don't know. I don't know where this story comes from. However, the symbology is fantastic. So Hieronymus at the beginning is waiting not in a well but in a cistern. So he's waiting in this water. Now, in Indian, Hindu, Jainist, and Indonesian mythology, wells and water and kept water is seen as a liminal space. It is a place in between worlds. And that's very similar to the way Jungian psychology sees wells as well. They represent the subconscious, sometimes the female principle. They represent a place that isn't quite here and isn't quite anywhere else. So our main antagonist is waiting in this cistern. For what he is waiting, we aren't really told until right at the end after he's found it. But the Rakshasa is interesting, and I'm not sure if it's meant to throw you on a false scent or not. So the Rakshasa are a fascinating breed of demons from this same mythological construct, Hindi, Jainist, Indonesian. They're shapeshifters, and throughout the Ramayana they are supernatural beings, they are demons. But unlike the Christian demons, they don't live in another realm, another sphere, they live on earth. And unlike the Christian demons, they can be either good or bad depending on context, and they can move between the two. Now throughout the Ramayana you've got heaps of these demons doing different things. They fight and they're excellent warriors, they can fly, and they can shape change. So having Hirano in the cistern, when you finally see him, is what you're seeing real, or is it a shape change? That is the question that must be terrifying the princess when she finally comes face to face with him. And there's a lot of other mythological constructs in there as well. It's like asking for things of an antagonist without knowing you're asking them. It's like inviting things in through the door when you maybe shouldn't. A whole heap of excellent stuff. This is a short story, but there's as much to talk about in it, clearly, as there would be in some full-length novels, because it's so rich in detail, and the detail is such a huge well you can fall down, or maybe a cistern. So Hirano is not a name I recognize. I don't recognize it from any mythology that I'm acquainted with. If you know where that name comes from, if it comes from somewhere specific, let me know. There is a demonic figure in Hindi mythology with a much longer name, part of which is Hirano. I don't think it's meant to be that one. And I can't find any examples of the binding of powerful demonic spirits in wells specifically for Hindu mythology. That's another one. Or Indonesian. I do know some Indonesian myths. I couldn't find anything like that. If you know any, let me know. I'm all ears. The Rakshasa, by the way, are also represented in Benedict Jacka's book. Is it Cursed? I think Cursed or Burned, one of them. You've got a Rakshasa as a figure, these strange Asian demons that can be both good or bad and change their shape. So there's a lot to enjoy in this story if you read it as a straight narrative. This is a horror story at its best, whatever else it may be. A retelling of the Frog Prince? Debatable, but Tanith Lee certainly could retell things in a way that you would find unexpected. And a fantastic story, absolutely. If you love Tanith Lee, you're going to love this one. If you thought Elphantasm was lush, you'll find this one just as lush, though shorter. And if you want a completely offbeat horror story that takes you way out of your comfort zone, I would recommend The Princess and Her Future by Tanith Lee from this collection, Red as Blood. Have a great day, read good books, and read good short stories.